Are we ready, do you think, Chris? Or
We are live.
we are live? Okay, good. Well, welcome everyone. This is another Tuesday. Tuesday. I'm losing track of time here. Another Wednesday at the Virtual Film Company at our new headquarters in Spatial IO. That's where we are right now. And one of the reasons that we chose Spatial was that you can access Spatial using a web browser, a cell phone, or like I am, a Oculus Quest headset, which really makes it easier for everyone to attend. We're also broadcasting live on Twitch and YouTube. So if you get a chance, please like us, leave us some good comments, send us some good tips. And we are here again every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. We are the Virtual Film Company. We produce films in virtual reality. We're looking for people
films
to
in virtual
help us out
reality.
in
We're
terms
looking
of
for people
editing,
films in
social
virtual
media,
help us out in
acting,
terms of
editing, the
editing.
whole 9 yards. So if you have any interest whatsoever in making film, this is a great opportunity for you. Today, we're going to be continuing our discussion about AI and AI regulation. It's a very hot topic. And so we're going to go ahead and start with Chris, who has put together a few slides for us. So, Chris, do you want to jump in and take it from there?
Well, yeah, everyone who followed us last week when we started to discuss a little bit about the hearing in the US Senate about the topic of artificial intelligence. It's, well, let's say there have been a lot of special questions from the US Senates, from the senators to, well, people that are at the moment developing the big so-called large language models. ChatGPT, I guess that is known to almost anyone today on the planet. Guess there are not many people left that never heard about ChatGPT. That is a large language model, basically. So people that never experienced it, well, it's a website, and you just can write a text, and you get an answer to questions or whatever you write from an artificial intelligence. And this artificial intelligence was created, let's say, by a company called OpenAI, and OpenAI has a CEO, and that person is Sam Altman, and he was questioned by the US senators last 2 weeks ago already about, well, what's happening with all that artificial intelligence in the future. Is it dangerous? What about, yeah, certain topics? And we chose three big topics that were raised in that hearing. And today we will go and discuss a little bit about it. And we can start with the first. And I just have to change the background. Right. So
Well,
the
this
big
is a
question is regulating AI, but what is with the small models? First, I would say, well, regulating AI. In that hearing, Sam Altman discussed with the senators what should happen in the future when companies are creating artificial intelligence systems. Should they be monitored by an agency, for example, so that not something harmful will get out there? And yeah, there were a lot of senators and also Sam Altman himself who said, yeah, it probably makes sense to regulate it. And now that's the big question. What do you guys think? Is it possible to regulate a technology like ChatGPT or a company like OpenAI. So how should that work?
That's a good
Wow.
question, Chris. That's a very good
question.
question. Sorry, did you that you wanted to say, Eric?
Well, with a
Hey,
question like
nice guy.
that,
Welcome.
it's so powerful and so broad of like, what is the right answer? And I feel like, unfortunately, with a lot of the topics, most of the people want to focus on what it's doing wrong and what's not right about it and what's dangerous about it, instead of, I feel like, talking about what's powerful with this and what are the benefits of this and how can it assist us. I definitely think that we need to find a balance between what is okay and acceptable and what is not acceptable, because using this as like a virtual assistant, somebody to help you do research and whatnot, this is a powerful tool. So I don't know what the exact right answer is, but I'm sure it'll come out. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, John.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of the fact that I think we're overhyping the dangers. And, I remarked on that this morning when one of the first articles I read, I don't remember which particular AI it was about, but the first thing that the author chose to do was to do something nefarious. And, oh, yeah, AI can be used for nefarious purposes, and I've just proved it. Well, anything can be used for good and for bad. And, as you say, I think if we focus too much on, this is going to take over the world, this is going to, rule over human beings, it's going to, do whatever it's going to do, this is going to take over the world. I'm sorry, but I think we're a little bit, being a little bit histrionic, and we need to calm down a little bit and take a deep breath and move on. We've had AI around for years and years and years. It's becoming more and more, usable in terms of its intelligence. Previously, it was a little bit archaic, obviously, but all technology moves, all technology progresses, and we need to accept that. I think we've
Like I feel like as you're saying that, like, to me, Siri's okay and Google Assistant is okay, and I feel like that was almost a form of artificial intelligence as well, but that was okay. There was no dangers in that. But now this is dangerous.
Okay,
Well, I mean, Eric, in that case, well, they are also dangerous. Basically, Eric, in that case, Google Assistant or whatever. Eric, because think about when you have this little microphone, and basically that assistant, not just more than a microphone standing around in your whatever sleeping room or whatever, right? And it's listening to everything what you say, right? So if it's Alexa or whatever, so there is quite some danger. The danger is what's happening to all the data, all the stuff that you're speaking all the time. But when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's a different type of danger, let's say, right? Because the first danger, what I was talking about with Alexa or whatever, that is about the data and how it is used by the company that it receives the data, right? In that case, maybe Google or Siri, it's Apple. But when we talk about artificial intelligence, the question is, well, what the company is doing with the data is one point, but the artificial intelligence itself, what it produces, answers, the ideas, however, could those be dangerous somehow? Can it be controlled? Right? It's a different discussion in my opinion in that case. And one additional important information from the hearing. What was said in the US Senate was that just the big AI models should be regulated. So the big question is, what is a big model? What is a small model? And that's why I brought up this little
So,
screen here.
Chris, give me a sec. Okay, I think we took care of that. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. What is a big model? What's a small model? The end. And why should the big one maybe be more dangerous and should be regulated, and the small one is not that dangerous? Big question. So first, I think we have to try to understand where the difference is. And as we already explained, well, ChatGPT, or for example also Llama, that's another model that was trained by the company Meta, better known as Facebook, and BART, that is an AI model trained by the company called Google, right? Those models would be regulated. They would be monitored by the new founded agency. But
Well,
what we
I
saw
think
in the last month, sorry, I had to explain
go.
that.
Go.
But what we have to see is that those bigger models, like for example the Llama model that was created by Meta, was captured somehow. Someone took that model because it was open source. It could be downloaded from the internet, and people from university were able to take that Llama model and use that to train their own model on it. So they trained an artificial intelligence on the data of the other already existent, bigger artificial intelligent model. And then they created models and they called them vicuña or alpaca. And well, llama is an animal, right? As we know it. And so they thought it's funny to call the smaller models this manner, to call them vicuña, for example, or alpaca in this case. So they are really a little bit smaller. They don't have that much information they have been trained on, but they are quite powerful. And the big question is a smaller model not as harmful as the big model? Maybe it will not be used that much, but couldn't it be evil and tell people when they ask it, how do I bake a cake or whatever, right? Give me a recipe, please. And then it's telling people to put poison stuff in there or whatever, if it's a really bad model, right? So wouldn't that be harmful? Shouldn't that be monitored as well? Well, it depends.
Yeah, but Chris, you bring up an interesting question to me, and that is, I mean, saying if I'm making a recipe and whatever model I'm using tells me to put cyanide in there, am I stupid enough to put cyanide in, or isn't this like everything else where there needs to be some critical thinking involved, and it can't
be definitely agree 100%. I mean, this is a quite graphic example, I know that, but yeah, I'm thinking about more pragmatic things that
but I think that's the root of the problem here, is that people themselves are fallible, right? And we're trying to blame artificial intelligence for that fallibility, where we're trying to say we as people, we're not responsible for anything whatsoever, and if something tells us to jump off the edge of a cliff, we should all just march off the edge of the cliff. I mean, that's basically the attitude that we seem to be taking to civilization these days. Is let's all self-destruct in the end and worry about technology and everything else while the world's burning. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, John, I can understand your point, yes, but on the other hand, we don't have too much experience yet with artificial intelligence and how it will act the end, right?
It's
So
true.
there might be stuff happening. So what do you think, Eric?
So, like the point that I want to is that is impacting everybody is like you were talking about. And I feel like that's part of the artificial intelligence training is the Google listening to everybody's conversation and what all of our data is. And when you sign up for a Google account or any of these email accounts and they've got this 20-page legal statement and no one knows how to read it, interpret it, anything like that, you just scroll to the bottom of it and you sign away these things. And yet why isn't this becoming like, everything that you were talking about, to me, this is something that we should all be concerned about, people's data being used, pictures being used and not being compensated properly by, you're talking about the big companies and the small companies. So this is like the important topics that I feel like, it all has a value and, Google's making a lot of money and I don't know how much they're giving away, so I feel like they are an example. And the same thing with Facebook. They want to start charging people for their profiles, but yet they're using all the data. So it's like something's out of balance here to where is the data worth something or is it not worth something? And maybe if it is worth something, there needs to be a platform that comes out that's going to reward people for utilizing their stuff. And then the people that care about their stuff being monitored can go to the platform that they will be compensated for at least their data being used. This is, I feel like, a topic within.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to this model creation and what data is being used to create those models. And I think, I mean, Chris, to me, the size of the model really language models and the other large models were the pioneers in this space that we won't go into how they got their data, but people, I think, are missing the point in terms of the fact that one can create one's own model. And so if you're an artist or an architect or someone else that does, something, well, I was going to say visually,
Right.
but it can be, written, you can create a written style. You could create a model of anything. I mean, people are creating models of speech these days where, instead of talking, they can just type in and, the AI talks in their voice. And the same thing with artists and writers. So I think these model arguments are sort of moot in that almost a few days doesn't go by until we hear about another model being released, a model that's naughty or dirty or has some sort of personality that these other models won't allow to come through. And I mean, I think that's where the danger lies, is that we start putting a lot of effort into hate models that are refined on hate speech or other nefarious things, and build models around those. I mean, that's where the danger is. And then going back to what Eric said about privacy, I think the danger with privacy is what people enter into these systems. I mean, it's like if you're doing a search on Bing or Google. Hello, how are you doing, Stephanie?
Hey, Stephanie, go ahead. We're filming right now, and this is a live show.
Yeah, we're talking about. No. Welcome. We're talking about AI and the impact of AI on society. And the big concern right now, as you probably know, is that here in the United States, about a week and a half ago, there was a hearing on AI, and I think the consensus, although Chris, I think Altman came to that consensus to placate the legislators. I mean, I really don't know what alternative anyone in the industry has right now. I mean, people are so freaked out by AI that turning around and saying, just calm down, it's not as bad as you think, isn't going to help. And so I think some of these people are, almost jumping on the bandwagon, and it's, let's regulate, but let us be in charge of the regulation. And so we can, dictate what's coming down the line. But it's a difficult one.
For sure it is. But I mean, I think it's important to think about that because, in my opinion, somehow it feels wrong just to take the big companies into the monitoring, and the rest is something like, oh, this is not interesting enough or whatever. I just want to show for people that never saw how that works, or how some of the small models behave, or what you can do with them, how they basically work. And I prepared something in this case. Whoops, like here. Another screen I have to put here. So, and that is on my PC. And that is the so-called Vicuña model. So basically, this is a program now running on my local PC, on the same PC I'm here in Spatial at the same time. And just to show, it looks quite similar to ChatGPT, and it behaves also quite similar to ChatGPT. So, well, we can ask it some questions, for example. So, like, hey, you think?
I think a good question is, we were going to talk about. Go ahead. What are you gonna ask it? Because I thought we should maybe ask it a health question and see what kind of recommended would be for a healthy lifestyle, and just to kind of see what this thing would have, instead of, see, you're going right into what would be dangerous. Everyone always wants to know the danger.
Yeah, so a question directly we asked the model itself, like, do you think it could be dangerous? So it's possible, but it depends on how the AI model is designed and used. Yeah, okay, I would agree to that. If an AI model is designed with safety in mind and is used responsibly, it should not be dangerous for people. However, if an AI model is poorly designed, or its use is irresponsible, could potentially cause harm. So now, when we think back on our discussion, I mean, this is what the model itself tells us, right? Like, if it's poorly designed. So, I mean, we just talked about how these models, how this Vicuña model was just created. It was done or created by some students, and those students took a bigger model from a big company like Meta, called Llama, and trained it on their own computers. And now, I mean, take this sentence, like, if it's poorly designed, it could do harm. Right. Who can judge if it was well designed by the students or poorly designed? So,
As you're telling me that, a question that I have is, I wonder how happy Facebook Llama, because I know that they've definitely spent some money to build that, was to find out some other people mined their data. I wonder how enthusiastic they were about that.
Well, I mean, the point is, with Llama in this case, I don't think they were too happy about that, but I guess they expected something like this. And the point is that Llama was created as an open source model. It should be given to the public anyways, right? That was the idea.
Well, it was.
But
it was.
yeah,
right.
But you know, wanted it to or not.
But I mean, what is harm? I mean, what do you guys think is harm?
Well, it could be anything that is misinformation, can also be just bad language to some people, right? Or I don't know, be disrespectful to certain people and hurt their feelings is also harm, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. but
to
can
me,
one live in a perfect world? I mean, that's the, that seems to be what we're trying to achieve overall,
I
is
mean,
this perfect world. And
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, so what I think could be harm, and this is just, I don't know, it could be interpreted as several different things. So some people are using this for self-help. Like, let's say they have some mental problems and they're embarrassed and they don't want to go see a psychiatrist or get some advice from other people. And they get advice from, let's say they're asking this a question, because some people have used this as like therapists as well. So anytime a therapist is giving any kind of information, I feel like that can be dangerous, just because the person is already not mentally stable if they're trying to get help. And even if they go to a professional, their advice is also open to be dangerous. So that's the first thing that's coming to mind with me as far as giving bad information that could become harmful if used. But then again, would you want to seek out a second opinion before something that IA gave you when it's an important life decision? Probably.
probably.
Definitely, yes, sure. I do agree with your points in that case, but for me, I mean, sure, any time when you get anything said by a person, by somebody on the internet, if you ask for help on Twitter or on Facebook, or if you ask ChatGPT or Vicuña or whatever, yeah, you always have to turn on your brain and think, okay, what kind of information do I get here? And I have to be self-responsible and so on and so on. No doubt about that. But again, I'm more thinking about the let's say the technical issues. Like, well, we want to be aware what happens with all these models that will be out there and be used by people, and we just
I
want to
mean,
be aware of what's happening with them,
yeah.
but we're just controlling a part of that. We're just controlling the big ones and the small ones that are capable. And we see, I have discussions with Vicuña already. It seems as good as ChatGPT in a certain amount. And we won't have a look at that one.
So we asked the dangerous question. Well, John comments, could we put a question in there, like from a health standpoint of what it would recommend if you're trying to get in better health? Can we just see what kind of response it would have? And then I want to hear what John kind of has to say as well, because he was going to comment.
So tell me
if
the
we're
question.
dealing with health, I think it's important that, and we'll take this opportunity. Thank you for watching. If you're out there, we're broadcasting live to Twitch and to YouTube. We're the Virtual Film Company. We meet every Wednesday here on Spatial IO at noon Eastern time. And just a word of warning here. We're all subject matter experts, but none of us are medical doctors. And so if we talk about health, it's at your own risk. And please, don't use these AI products as an alternative to a licensed medical practitioner. In doubt, please see somebody. Don't just type random stuff into GPT and hope that it diagnoses you. There's other things that go into a diagnosis, like blood tests and good stuff like that. So
100%.
sanity must prevail.
Yes, like that abandoned hospital that people that know us, when we administered the vaccine there, we're not recommending. So what would the question you?
Well, my question was quite broad in this case. How can I improve my health status?
Great.
The answer is, well, there are many ways to improve your health status. Wait a second, please. Some things you can try include eating a balanced diet, getting regular exercise, getting enough sleep, managing stress, and visiting your doctor for checkups and screenings. Additionally, avoiding unhealthy habits such as smoking and excessive alcohol consumption can also help improve your health.
I do
So,
love that they put excessive alcohol consumption. So if you just do some alcohol consumption, it's not going to necessarily impact you negative. They're just the excessive. I love that. There
Well,
you
we could
go.
do a whole show on that one. I mean, there is evidence that having a drink a day, can help.
It's
There's
all good.
evidence
Yes.
that having a drink a
Yes.
day can be detrimental. Any alcohol can be
100%.
detrimental
I just
to your
love that
health.
they
So
put
it's a
that in
whole.
there. I love that
But I
they
think
put that in
the
there.
important thing here to me is that none of these products, you can put in whatever question you want to put in. They're going to give you an answer, and it's up to you. As you said, Chris, I mean, this is, basic stuff that, if one wants to maintain one's health, eating a balanced diet, doing regular exercise,
Yes.
those are important things. But to some people, and, I think this is where the disconnect comes, is that some people just aren't even aware of the fact that eating well can make a difference in terms of, being healthy or sick. And, it's unfathomable to me sometimes to, accept the fact that a lot of people, and I'm sorry to say this, are stupid. Okay. People are just, man, it's like smoking, or doing anything that's detrimental to one's health, right? I mean, the answer is stop doing it, or improve on what one's doing to make it better. I mean,
Well,
one of the things that I think AI is never going to say is just sit back and watch television and enjoy yourself. It's always going to give you something to
if
do.
it's trained by Netflix, I should.
yeah, that could be that there
Well,
could be truth. Some truth.
And that's the problem, I think, Chris. I mean, you sort of, jokingly hit the nail on the head there again, is that, depending on who trains these models, there are going to be biases that creep in because
Exactly.
of the biases that the engineers have that train the models. I mean, it's
but
that's the point.
I also think, like, as far as when you're watching TV, like, you don't have to sit on the couch. You could sit on the floor and you could stretch. You can do some exercises while watching a program. I mean, it is possible. So some people aren't that good at multitasking, but I know that there was people out there that would be listening and hearing that and being like, I don't know, I ride my bike, I run on a treadmill while I'm watching TV. So there is some people that do multitask while they're consuming a show.
For sure, there are always possibilities. Again, I mean, this is more here about, this approach. How are we going to get around with these new technologies, and how well are we going to deal with the fact that there are some things quite monitored and others not? And that's the only restrictions. So, anyways, it's great we have different opinions here, and I would say we should at least jump to a second question before we just do this one here.
No, I agree that this is, we could talk a whole hour on this subject. And Ira X Lab, welcome. I know you're sitting down, but yeah, we're talking about AI and its impact. So we just want to welcome you here. So go ahead, Chris.
Absolutely. So the next topic, for example, and we talked about that basically last time already a little bit, that is also heavily discussed on the hearing, and that was the topic of AI and copyright issues.
This is a
and this
huge
one
topic. Go ahead, John.
I think this one was well timed, if one can, use that expression in relation to this. But we've had to have I mean, basically, every time there's a technological change or advancement, the legal system has to hurry up and play catch up. And, one of the things that's obvious here is that our copyright laws are archaic and need to be redone because, it's really, I don't think, fair to either the photographer or the Warhol Foundation so many years later to bring up something that's been so public for so long. And yeah, there's no argument that the Warhol Foundation or Warhol infringed on the rights of this photographer, but man, there needs to be some sort of statute of limitations in terms of, if you use my work or I see you use my work, I can sue within a certain time, or it goes into the public domain, or, something maybe as ridiculous as that. I don't know. But, this brings up the whole question of derivative works. And this is what happened here was that the photographer Woodall, I think her name is, apologize if I got that wrong, but took pictures of prints, which Warhol then later on created screen prints from. And, they're pretty much exactly the same picture, except, they're now screen printed. And so the colors are different, but the work remains the same. And so that goes back to, what is fair use when it comes to copyright. And, in my opinion, this isn't fair use. And, it reminds me of another case that was brought before the court over the last couple of months to do with copyright. And that was by the Internet Library, I believe they're called, where they tried to make the argument that loading out a book multiple times, as long as they owned one copy of the book, was in accordance with the law. And the judge basically laughed at the arguments that they made. And, again, we need to come up with better laws, because the underlying issue with this whole Warhol infringement case is when one starts looking at some of these models, whether they be text-based or image-based or whatever, and where did they get their original material from? And have they changed that original material enough that it doesn't reflect the original material? And, I mean, it's a hard one to deal with, because, for example, right now I'm working in Mid-Journey creating some 4th of July art and, doing patriotic stuff. But Captain America keeps popping up in, all of his glory with his shield and, the whole lot. And so, rightfully, I mean, I said to myself, I mean, this can't be right. Surely Captain America must be copyrighted. And, not only is Captain America copyrighted, but the shield is trademarked, that you can't go and create a Captain America shield. There's a I mean, they've wrapped this stuff up so well in intellectual property protections, which begs the question as to why I can create Captain America using Mid-Journey. I shouldn't actually be able to. I mean, that's
right, and it should not be,
There's,
the props shouldn't be pulling him up. It should not be even creating him, like within the artwork that you're looking to put out there.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that goes back to this original question, how much is that artwork changed? And, when you look at something as simple as Captain America, there's not much room for change, I'm afraid to say. So,
no, it's like a wasted image being created. So there needs to be the negative keywords as well, to where it's like, it's just not going to pull him up because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I ended up doing that. I ended up putting in, not Captain or, dash dash no Captain America. And, the problem with prompting is that any words, whether they be positive or negative, have an overall effect on the end result. So, we're, going back to this, I mean, this is just another blip in the legal adventure, I guess, that AI has kicked off in terms of trying to figure out, what's legal and what isn't. And, there's a lot of artists out there that, believe that using their style is illegal. And, that's incorrect because you can't copyright a style. So one is free to, copy anyone's style as long as you don't actually copy the art.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this case is a case of low-hanging fruit. I mean, again, it's a blatant use of the image to where this artist should be compensated. And, it's just, again, to where it's working out the balance within where we're going with everything. And I know we've talked about this in other episodes and before, but I do believe the blockchain is going to be, when this regulation comes in place, and the AI is so smart to be able to track things and make sure everybody's compensated. Because again, now you're going to have artists that are, I believe, if they're going to get a certain amount of points, they're going to put their music out there to get used. They're going to put their artwork out there to get used, but everybody needs to get paid and compensated for their art. That's what that's what I believe the big issue is artists to be compensated for their work.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice, but the problem ultimately becomes that everyone wants to be compensated, and it's like, is there enough money to compensate everyone?
Well, I mean, the way the film industry worked, it would be like a 100-point scale. So if there's 100 points, even if you're using something that's super copywritten that you do to one change on, maybe you're only going to get 5 points out of every 100 that comes out there, but it's something.
Well, yeah, but I mean, should you be allowed to use anything that's copywritten? I mean, I don't think you should. I, think there's fair use that applies to nonprofits and editorializing and news, but taking something that someone else has created and
all right, how about a very, very famous piece of music that you want to recreate a music video in virtual reality, but it's super popular and there's so much licensing that goes into it, but you as the dancer and you film it, now you're creating a new piece of art that was interpreted of the song, and they can have their 95% and you could come in and just get a small piece for, your piece on contributing your art to it. And I'm not saying that this is the solution, but I'm saying that's an example of how a copyright piece could be utilized.
Yeah, but when dealing with music, and adding dance to it, you're not actually changing the original music, and you can't change the original music. I mean, if you use even a couple of beats of that music, you're infringing on copyright. So, there is no way to take something that someone else has created without their permission and build on it. I'm afraid to say. I mean, one can
Well, we could
waste
talk
one's
about
time
this.
doing it, but
Right. Well, we could talk about this topic forever. Chris, I think we should get to the next topic, unless you have something to comment on this in closing.
No, I think you guys just said almost anything I wanted to. No, it's a broad topic, and for sure this will go on for quite a while, because copyright and generating on this fast pace that we will see now in the future, now that generating is getting easier and easier. Yeah, that will be a big topic for sure. So, and yeah, we can check on the last topic, basically, and that is the ChatGPT plugins.
Yes, not only is it not going away, it's evolving.
So, John, which plugin did you use already?
Man, I'm trying to remember. I've started playing with the. I can't remember. There's a company that provides API access to, like, I don't know, 700 different apps. Don't quote me on that number, but a lot of different apps. And so one of the plugins that I started playing with was giving me access to, calendar apps, appointment apps, and keeping track of everything that is going on around me. But the problem that I've already run into is, yeah, it's nice being connected, but I already have Alexa, I already have Google, I have a smartwatch, and I'm bombarded throughout the day by reminders to do this, to do that, and sometimes it just becomes like enough, and I turn it off because I don't want to be reminded about anything anymore. And but it goes back to health, right? Where I think one of the things that's been going on in the background here, which does relate somewhat to these plugins, is Fitbit and its, well, I wouldn't say but its partners move to consolidate data. And so, my Fitbit data, for example, gets fed to, gosh, probably 6 different places, Google included. But, every moment of my day when my watch isn't charging, they know what my heart rate is. They, know what my body temperature is. They know how much activity I've done. And
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Because
but
that's the kind of data that's going to make a difference in the future, is really the data that's going to make a difference in monitoring for long periods of time. Very powerful data, John. So that's awesome that you're sharing that.
No, it is powerful. And, one of the organizations is, I think it's a national organization from the National Institute of Health called All of Us, which, they also collect or will collect one's DNA. And, I mean, there's people that are reluctant even to give their DNA because they feel that perhaps someone will clone them or, come up with some other nasty method of using it. But, going back to your point, I think having this information out there enables scientists to come up with better cures and, better ways to just treat disease. I mean, looking at this chart here, Chris, I mean, one of the other, I noticed a few of these little, like Klarna, for example, is a bank, a Swedish bank that does, sort of
It's like a
pay on
credit card
demand, or
somehow.
yeah, exactly. And at one point they had access to my email, and every time I bought something at Amazon, they sent me an email saying, "Oh, you bought something at Amazon." And I mean, I got so tired of that it was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm disconnecting. I don't want you to be telling me.
What you already
for
bought.
Sure that is one of the points here. I mean, we have to see that those plugins are now, a lot of people waited for them. It just means that now in any certain app, you will have an integration of ChatGPT. So in that case, it could be like,
Hey, David.
hi, David.
We're filming
the
right now,
kayak app,
so
right?
thank you.
When you are searching for your next vacation, that you might have a discussion with the kayak app, because now it has ChatGPT operated, right? And ask the kayak app, instead of give me some hotels in Switzerland, it might start and discuss with you like, oh, wouldn't you like to go to Turkey, because the sun is a little bit better, and I know that you like this, and you're a big fan of whatever kind of parties, and best parties at the moment are on, I don't know, the island of I don't know where, stuff like that, right? Because again, it's a language model, it can talk to you somehow, right? And it might have quite a lot of information, because you already use the kayak app for a while, and it knows where you went for the last holidays. So for sure, there's tons of more possibilities for the programmers to involve the bot or the app together with you. Normally, it's if you use an app for Klarna or Kayak or whatever, it's quite simple. You have some functions and you use them. But now think about that. You always have a little person sitting there, and it might be that this person is going to try to engage with you a little bit more, right? So I'm quite curious how that will turn out in the end. Any time when you're opening a little app for purchasing something, is going to argue with you like, hey, you could buy more, or stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, there,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point. Bill Gates, in fact, gave a presentation yesterday where he brought this up, and his prediction, amongst others. I mean, we've personally been working on a project that involves Sherpa bots, guides, but Bill Gates basically is saying that that's the next big thing, is that each one of us will have. I mean, the problem with Siri and Google and Alexa is that they're pretty stupid, and I've tried to have a conversation
That's
with
your
all of them.
opinion.
Well, they are. I mean, it's like they don't work very well. They don't remember certain things. I mean, even trying to ask Google.
They're like a 3-year-old though. They've only been around for a few years. They need to mature. They're not quite, they still are gaining their intelligence, John.
Yeah, but they're one-way type things. They're not programmed to, come up with a response that is
They're not there yet.
human-like.
They're not
But I
there
think
yet.
they will be. I mean, I think that, Chris, I think you're, right on that. What we will eventually have is each one of us will have a little, I don't know, implant, virtual AR, whatever. I mean, I don't know what it's going to manifest as.
As I'll tell you what, as much as I love to type and whatnot, I can't wait to just almost think something and it can just go. I mean, to me, think about how efficient you could be if you were just using thought instead of having to now. I feel like this Chat GPT is that first bridge to where you're only needing to talk like a paragraph, for instance, and then it's able to elaborate on you based on data that it can pull, and it really can make you more efficient. So I know we're wrapping up today. I haven't gotten to do one of the Chat GPT plugins. Now, I have been using Chat GPT for this project, Celebrating Stars, that each day there's a different celebrity and a musician and there's a song, and it's been doing a really amazing job to weave all of them in and using astrology and pulling a quote that they had and telling a fun fact on who these people were and what they were about. And I feel like it's a perfect example of just some people would think it's absolutely useless information, but some other people would think, wow, this is a great way to celebrate this person and show them a happy birthday and go, oh, I remember that movie that they were in, or oh, I remember that quote, and just having a moment of like, yep, this is great. And it would take me hours to curate this thing and pull all the data. So I mean, But I want to maybe see if I can do some more of the automating of it, because the playlist already exists within one of these plugins. So if we want to continue the discussion, I would love to do some homework and tap back into this maybe next week.
Yeah, I think it's by
Yeah.
waiting list only still. Is it, Chris? Or
Oh,
The plugins at the moment, I think some of them are live just for
I am
subscription
paying for a
users.
subscription. I'm paying for a
Exactly.
subscription, so I
For
should be able to
subscription
get
users,
access to something.
but not all of them. And I have a list here. So there are directly apps from OpenAI. I don't know which one are first and usable. I have no free idea. But there are apps like the web browser, a code interpreter, retrieval plugin. There's Expedia, and as we said, Kayak and Klarna and Milo Family AI and One World Domains and OpenTable, searching for restaurants, for example, and a lot of where you can search for shops. There's Wolfram, that is real-time mathematics.
Spotify
System.
has one too, right? For
It's not on the list here, but I think
No.
there is one, yeah. And here are some leaked plugins. So
Okay.
some that are Price Runner and Slack. And there are some announced plugins like Baby AGI or ChatSonic, GetGuru. There's a lot to come in the end. So we will see. The big question is what happens when people are more or less being engaged by, as you mentioned already, like Alexa or Siri or whatever. Well, they were just a voice, and you gave commands. Do this, do that, give me this information, give me that information. They never talk back to you. They never asked you a question or started a discussion with you. As I said, like think about ordering your next flight to the vacation. And then the bot is
Right.
programmed to sell you something else. Like you could take a more expensive flight to a more expensive hotel. Like why not have a little discussion like, hey, come on, I have a great something for you here. Don't you like this and that and blah blah,
Or how about a to-do list? It checks out your to-do list and it's like, hey, sounds like you got a couple minutes right now. Why don't you work on this? I did some research for you on this project and that project. What do you think about this? And just kind of moving the ball forward sometimes. I mean, that could be useful as well with whether it's a trip or, you got dinner in a couple days. Hey, I did some research for you. Maybe these few spots would be good locations for you to go.
Yeah, I think the possibilities are more or less endless. And I'm really curious to see how companies are going to use that. And again, how this will impact certain economic fields, let's say. And also if people are getting mad with this, they just say, no, I don't want these.
Well, I think that we're already running into that to where there's people that have already written this thing off and they just think it's going to go away and they want it to go away. And I think that those people should just really embrace this because this technology is not going anywhere. Like John's quote, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like it's here.
That is for sure, yeah.
But it does go
Right.
to, we're at the end of our show, huh?
Yep, we are.
Great. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. This is the Virtual Film Company. We're here on Spatial I/O every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time for an hour, where we talk about technology, the metaverse, virtual reality, pretty much anything. And so we invite you to join us. Be sure to check out the recording of this show and our other shows on YouTube. And we're starting to broadcast on Twitch as well. So hopefully at some point you'll be able to see content on Twitch. But for now, check out YouTube, and we also have a Facebook page. We'd love you to join us there too. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
See you later from the
Yay!
metaverse. Spatial in the metaverse. Yes, here we are.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Marlon.
Thanks, Mylan. Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris. See you guys.